Okay, good morning. I'm excited today. We're going to be taking some helpful information that focuses on graduation, college requirements, and just sort of like where we want to go with our lives. And we're going to roll it into some basic elements necessary to produce effective print, video, audio, and interactive media using InDesign. So this should be a fun assignment, and I'm going to walk you through how we're going to get started. First and foremost, here's the assignment description. As a reminder, it's really important that before you get started with your InDesign document, that you've completed thorough responses to each of these questions. This is what the focus of your newsletter is going to be today, and while this will be the focus of this newsletter, you'll have lots of creative control over what sorts of newsletters or other types of publications that you can create in the future. In addition, right, what you'll learn today, you'll see that we not only are limited to print publications, that we can also create publications for the web, interactive PDFs, and so on and so forth. So without further ado, let me show you what I've done. I've created a folder that's going to be helpful for me today. It's got a couple of photos, right? A few of me, one of the college that I spoke about, one of the MA, and you might choose pictures similar to this, or you might choose pictures that are totally different, that apply to exactly what you wrote with your text. Speaking of text, on Microsoft Word, I created a document where I put down responses to each of the questions posed. And so again, like I followed through and I answered each of the questions that we discussed, and I've got them right here in a Word document. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to open up InDesign. So to do that, I'm going to go down to my Start menu. It may be right here in your most used apps. And if you don't see it, it's fine. Right down here in the Search tab, you can just go ahead and type in InDesign, and it'll come right up. Adobe InDesign. All right, so once InDesign opens, we're going to go ahead and we're going to create a new document. So go ahead and click on Create a New Document. And for this, because we're just creating a newsletter, we're just going to create a one-page document with the first page as our starting point. In addition, there's some other questions down here, and I'm going to show you why we're going to leave this document one column, even though the assignment description says that your final product should be 2 or 3. I also want to show you right here in the intent section, you have an option, whether this is going to be a print document, a web document, or whether it's going to be digitally published so that somebody could look at it on their iPhone or iPad, and so on and so forth. Again, for today, we're looking at a print document. Once we have this all set up, I'm going to select OK, and it's going to create my document. Now, this purple box is going to, this shows us our margins. But remember that in InDesign, our page document goes all the way to these outer lines. And so that's important to remember because we can have background colors, images, and so forth that extend beyond the margins. First thing I'm going to do is I want to add a title. So whatever the title of your document is, we can add that by going over here to the toolbar. We're going to select our rectangle frame tool, and I'm going to create a text box that goes from page edge to page edge. And with that frame selected, I can go over to my toolbar again, grab my text tool, my type tool, and I can type right inside that box I just created. Very simple. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to name my document Chris Rubin. And then underneath it, I'm just going to go ahead and have a small subtitle that's going to be A Future as Certain as Ever. And that's kind of, I'm being a little sarcastic because a lot of what I wrote demonstrates how there's a lot of uncertainty in my life through high school and college and what sort of career path I would follow and what I was interested in doing. And so again, just like in my life now, it's ever changing and I'm open to change and that's why I'm saying sarcastically, a future as certain as ever. I'm going to take my title and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to center it. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change the type size, and I'm going to change the typography that I'm going to use. And those are two really important elements in terms of getting our audience's attention and helping them like identify with this document. So over here I have my different typography options, and I'm just going to scroll through. And again, this is always a tough decision. There are so many different options. So whatever you choose, perhaps like I'll try starting with this one, you may decide later that you want to come back and change that. I'm also going to go ahead and I'm going to make the size of my title nice and large so that it's very clear like who we're talking about or what we're talking about. And lastly, I've got a couple of options up here in my toolbar, and I really like this option where for a title, where it gives me the option to have all caps, but it changes my letters after the first name initial in my name, it changes them to small caps. And so I may be looking at this and decide, you know, I like that type, but I feel like it should be a little bigger. And again, you don't have to only go by those options. If you feel like it needs to be somewhere between 60 and 72, that's fine. You can go right in the middle, just type 66, and there it is. For this, I'm going to actually choose a different type for my subtitle. I do definitely want that to be a little bit larger. And again, I can kind of look around and see what fits. And so for my purposes right now, I don't want to spend too much time on this because you can always come back and play around with the options. But I just want to show you how many options there are, how you can just come back anytime to this document, grab your type tool, go right in here, highlight the text, and then you can change the size, you can change the font type, you can see if you have options to make it bold or semi-bold, right? And you can gauge what's going to work best for you, okay? All right, so I'm going to stick with that. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just pull this down slightly because I feel like my title's about to fall off the page. And so I might keep it here within the margins. So the next step is getting our text into our document. And so when we put our text into our document, we're going to follow a very similar process. I'm going to go over here to my toolbar, and I'm going to grab my rectangle frame tool again. And I'm going to work on the same layer right now and just know that all of my text is going to be on the same layer. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to draw a box, but this time, actually, instead of starting all the way at the edge of my page, I know that I really just want this text to fall within my margins. So I'm going to create a text box that follows from the left to the right margins and all the way down to the bottom margin that I've set on the page. The next step is I'm going to go back up to my selection tool, and I'm going to go to File, and I'm going to go to Place. And this is my opportunity that I can just grab a document that I've written in Microsoft Word, something that is easily accessible from many different computers, maybe even your own home, and I can just place all of that text right into InDesign. So I'm going to select Open, and it's going to place all of the text right here. Now, I've got a couple of issues here. The first one is, it turns out I wrote too much. That's a good problem to have, right? I can go back and I can get rid of some of the text that maybe isn't as important or consequential. The second issue is that it's all in one column. And I really want to have two columns for this document. No problem, right? To switch from one column to two columns is very simple. I'm just going to go to the object, scroll down to text frame options, and right here I've got the opportunity to change from one column to two columns to three columns, and so on and so forth. Okay, so I'm going to choose two columns, right? And I also have a couple of other options, but for now I'm perfectly content with all of my settings. and I'm going to select OK. The next thing that I want to do is I want to just go ahead and I want to see how much text I can get on my document. We never want to go smaller than really an 8 or 9 point font, but in this case, just to make my life a little bit easier, I'm going to select an 8 point font, and I'm going to try and get as much of the text that I wrote onto my page. Now, this might not be an issue for you, but remember that you also don't want to have too large of a font. So you really, if you are, if you're feeling like you don't have enough text, resizing it to 14 or 15 isn't the answer, right? You want to try and add a little bit more text and really be in like the maybe 10 to 11 point font area. Now, this is great, but I still have a few issues. I know I'm going to have to get rid of some of this text. And so just for the sake of time and this tutorial, I'm just going to delete some of the text that from a couple of my categories. So that might be good enough, and I can always come back later. The next thing I want to do is I want to make sure that I set up the formatting for my entire document before I start adding images, before I start adding background colors, and so on and so forth, because it can get a little confusing. So the next step is just resizing these titles. I do want those to be a bit larger, right? And I might want to go back and have like the same text as this so that it all ties together. In this case, I can just click up here on my title and remind myself that I used Prestige Elite Standard for my typography. So I'll go back down here. Sorry. I'll go back down here. I'll highlight the first subcategory. I'll look for the Prestige Elite Standard. I might decide, you know, I'd like to have that title be a little bit larger. Maybe I want it to be bold, which it is. I might want to center that on my document, and I might want a space right underneath before the text starts. And I'm going to make that, I'm going to do that all the way through. So again, this will take a second, but I'm just going to create the text type. I'm going to make sure that I have consistent type size and that I center each of my titles. So again, select my type, select the size, and center the text. Again, I'm going to select my type, font size, and center it. And as I'm doing this, I'm actually deciding, you know, I actually don't like the space that I have underneath this title, so I'm just gonna remove that. And that's easy to do, just like any other document. I'm gonna highlight this one. Again, I go back up here to my type options, choose the type, center it, size 14. One couple more, size 14, centered, and last one, we did it. So good. So now we've got each of our sections clearly laid out. We've got a title that hopefully you're happy with. You've got your text, and we're kind of ready to start playing with the option of adding some images. So again, I went ahead and I created a folder where I put some different photos that I felt like would be really helpful for me to include in my InDesign document. Remember, the goal of these photos is to help complement the story that you're telling. So, for example, my college search, right? This would be a great place to go ahead and add an image of where I went to college. So I'm going to grab my selection tool, and I'm going to make sure that I'm not selected on anything. I'm going to do that by just clicking over here on the left side. And then I can just go to File, place, and I'm going to choose the image of the college I went to. So this is the library at UC San Diego. It's named after Dr. Seuss, so it's the Giesel Library. I'm going to select open, and it's going to give me this option to place this image wherever I want to. So I'm going to go up here to my college search, and it's easy to move afterwards, but I'm going to try and place it, somewhere in this paragraph, and I want it to align on this right-hand column. Okay, already we see that we've got a little bit of a problem, right? Because it just went over my text. That's not a problem at all. We can go to our text wrap option over here on toolbar on the right side. If you don't see this, no problem. Go to Window, and then you can find the text wrap tab, and it will pop out right on your screen. What I like to do is just add them all over here to a toolbar, and then they're easy to find. So for this image, right, I might want to wrap the text around it. And I might see that my text is just a little bit close on each side and above it. And so I'm able to, right, either select this link and create even spacing all the way around, right? Or I might decide that, that's a little bit too much space above and beyond, and so I can minimize that space if I'd like to, right? So again, that's open to your interpretation, but you do want to have that text wrap around the image. As I'm doing this, I'm starting to realize that I'm not that happy with one other aspect of my text, and I might want to go back now and fix that, and that is that it's not justified. I always feel like it looks cleaner when we have something that's justified it goes from column to column evenly. I really like that look. So I'm just going to highlight my text in each section, and instead of it being justified to the left, instead of it being aligned to the left, I'm going to have it be justified so that it's even on both sides. And that'll take me just a second. And one of the reasons that this would have been good to do earlier is I would have been able to highlight all of my text. Instead, now I'm having to be careful because I don't want my titles that I already spent time centering to end up back against my the left column of my document. And you can see when I do this, if you actually just saw, I'm going to undo what I just did. Look at how nice and clean it makes this text wrap around my image. So here's what it was currently, and here's what it is when I make it justified. So it's kind of a nice look in my opinion. So I have two more text areas that I need to do this to. And there we go. So now I can go ahead and I can continue either looking at this image or adding other images. In this case, if I want to move this image, it's very easy. I just select the image, and I can move it up or down. I can move it to the left and have the text wrap around it on all sides. Again, like I said, I really wanted it against the left column, and you can always also use the arrows on your keyboard to try and make sure that it's a good fit on your page. So again, I'm content with that for right now. Let's see. Let's go back. Let's place another image. I'm going to make sure that I've got my selection tool highlighted, and I'm going to click off the whole document. If I stayed selected on that image, I'd go to File, Place. I'd select this image, and it would actually replace the other document. So you really want to make sure that you've clicked off the whole everything, and nothing's selected. Then we're ready to add the next image. So File, Place, and I'm going to add the MA Bears image. I'm going to open that, and again, it gives me this option to place it on my document. For this one, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to just insert it right over here on the left-hand column. And again, you can see that it went above my text. No problem. I go right over here to my text wrap option, select text wrapping, and again, you can see that, in my opinion, it needs a little bit more space above it. So I'm going to push that text up a little bit. And it's aligned against the left column, so I don't really need any extra space there. But over here on the right side, it's just a little close to the text for me. So I'm going to, again, increase that space. And now I've got my second image inserted. Okay, I'm happy with that, and I'm ready to continue. I'm gonna make sure I'm not selected on anything, go to File, Place, and like I'm gonna include this photo next. This is sort of my future of Mr. Rubin, right? Showing like unpredictability, the fact that, you know, I was traveling and I ran into you know, a group of people who I really wasn't like prepared to meet, and it was just kind of a fun, neat experience. So I felt like that was a picture that I'd want to include in terms of just why I like where I'm at in my life and what it allows me to do and sort of the neat experiences that it provides me. And again, I'll follow the same procedures. I'm going to wrap that text, and I'm going to maybe give it a little bit of space on the top, and I'm content with it on the bottom, but it definitely needs a little bit of space on the left side to move that text away. And you know, I might want to move it down a little bit so it's really like kind of focused on, there's a focus in that paragraph on it. The other thing is I don't want it to be too lined up with my other images, so I'm actually going to wind up moving it. I might actually move this one up here, and so this is where you get to be a little artistic in the layout of your document. And you can see that with the addition of this image, all of a sudden the image of my college sort of went into a strange space. And you know, I might even decide for this image, I want to rotate it a little bit. That might be a little much. But I have that option too by grabbing this upper right-hand corner. I can just rotate it a little bit to the left, a little bit to the right, and I can have a little bit of fun with it. All right. Let's see what else we have. Deselect everything, go to File, Place, and I've got one more picture. And so this picture to me is probably one of the most important ones, right? It's why I went to college. It's why I worked hard in high school. It's why I feel like an A through G education is important. And it's why, like, you know, I want to work hard every day. And so I think a lot of us feel the same way. It's because we prioritize family. And so I'm going to add this image. And again, I want to wrap the text around it. I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to create that link so that there's a good amount of space around the whole thing. So now comes like a little bit of a challenge, right? This is where we have to really make sure all of our images are in the right place. And you can see now why it's really important. You don't want to start putting backgrounds on or like limiting your space until all of these elements are included, because things move a lot. So I'm going to select these images and I'm going to move them around so that they fit nicely in my document. You saw like what just happened. I grabbed an image and it moved out of the text frame. So you want to be really careful. If you want to move an image, you need to deselect everything, and then you can click, make sure you've got the blue box around it, and now you're able to move the image. And so again, I'm just gonna move these around, and let's move this down here. Using my arrow tool. I love the arrow tool because it gives me a lot of precision over what I'm doing. And do I have everything? I guess so. And so we can always add like a little bit more later and play around with it. For right now, I want to give you an idea of some of the like simplest options for how you can finish off a document like this. So number one, I've added a lot of images, but it still feels like the image or the document's pretty bare. So you might want to add a background color. To do that, I'm going to go to my layers panel, And I'm going to now rename this. I want to rename it as text and images. And that way I'm going to be really clear on what's on that layer. Okay? I'm going to add another layer. I'm going to call this one my background layer. And that way I'm going to know, oh, on this layer, it's going to be my background color. To add a background color, I'm going to go over here to my toolbar, and I'm going to grab my rectangle tool, and I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to draw a rectangle. I'm going to draw the rectangle from the top left-hand corner of my screen to the bottom left-hand corner of my screen. And remember that nothing can print outside this black border. So I'm going to set mine right on the border, but really, in theory, you could actually draw that box to go beyond that. And it would have no negative effect on your document. All right, so let's draw this border, this background. Make sure that you're selected on the correct layer, right? And then let's go ahead and draw from the top left-hand corner all the way to the bottom. Okay, and then on that color, we can go, or on that background, we can go ahead and we can go up to the very top. I'm going to select on the stroke color, and I'm going to choose none. And for my fill color, right, I'm just going to, I don't know, these are one of the preset ones, so I could either choose that, but if I don't like that, then I could double click here, and I have my color picker, which includes pretty much any color that you would ever want. So maybe I'm thinking like a nice light green. And that gives you an idea of how you can create a really simple newsletter, right? Do note that some of my text left the page. And so that's something that you'll have to work with in terms of figuring out, do I want to delete some text to get that back on the page, or just how you're going to work that out. Again, for the sake of the tutorial, I'm going to leave that aspect to you, but it's very easy to come in and just say like, here, I'm going to delete this sentence, and it'll help bring more sections back onto your page. You also have the option to always, maybe you feel like your title could be a little bit higher on your page. And maybe you feel like this set of columns could be raised up on your page, right? Which again would give you a little bit more space. For me, I guess I just don't feel like that helps create a strong element of design. And you can always preview your document by holding down Shift and pushing W. And that's going to give you the preview of, hey, this is what your document looks like. All right. So at this point, you've created the most simple InDesign document possible. Right? What I'd like to do is spend a moment and sort of show you some additional things that you can do to make your document a little bit fancier. All right, so how to make our document a little bit fancier. Let's start with one thing that's kind of fun that you actually do see quite a bit in like magazines, or newspapers, and that's adding a drop cap. That's going to make our first letter of each paragraph a little bit larger. I can do that by going to my paragraph toolbar. To do that, if you don't see it here on the right side, go to Window, and then you can go down to Type and Tables, and you can grab your paragraph tools. Once you have your paragraph tools, you just scroll down, and this icon represents a drop cap. So in this case, it'll tell me like how large should my drop cap be. I can either have it be the size of one line, which it currently is, or 2 lines, or even as many as 3 lines, right? And if I want to take a look at what that looks like, I can always hit Shift W and see if I like that look. I can hit Shift W again to undo it, and I might decide, well, that's a little much for me. So I'm going to take it down to 2 lines, right? And I can also create a little bit of space for it too, if I feel like that's necessary. In this case, I don't really feel that way. So I'm going to do that for each of my sections. I'm just going to create a drop cap that again like sort of signals here's the beginning of a new section. All right. And I'm looking here, and I don't really like the fact that this title is just hanging on to the bottom of the page and the rest of it's up here. So in that case, I've got a couple of options, and in fact, I think the option I'm going to use is I'm going to just I am going to include a space here after all, because I think there should be a little bit of space, but maybe that's too much. So what I can do is I can just change the size of my spacing. So this is like one of the most fun parts of InDesign in the sense that you have the opportunity to just sort of play around with your layout and design. So I'm going to add a space. I'm just going to go to the front, right in front of that drop cap I created. And I'm just going to create a space under each title. Right? And again, this is proving like why you really want to be careful with what you add to your document before you're done placing images and text and like finalizing your text. And so again, like I took out a little bit more text so that this would work. Again, you'd probably want to be take a little bit more care in what you either include or don't include. Obviously, that would make sense because because I'm just kind of randomly deleting text to show you how to format your document. Right here, I actually want to make this image maybe slightly larger, and so I'm going to right click on it. I'm going to go to transform, and I can go to scale, and that's going to allow me to either make it a little bit bigger, right, or maybe I'll even decide yeah, I kind of like it a little bit bigger, and that actually fits well for me because having been a graduate of MA, that's too big though. It did play a big role in my life, and so I'm gonna hit OK, and I might actually take this image, and I might do the same thing. I might go to transform, scale. Okay, there we go. Let's see. Gotta move this up. Maybe move this around because just moving these images around real quick. Let me go back down here. This guy, move it to the center. Make sure that's selected all the way. This image, let's go ahead and transform, scale. Let's make it a little bit smaller. There we go. Move that right down here. There we go. This is looking good. And I like that there's like a little bit, like the pictures aren't like perfectly balanced. They're not perfectly symmetrical. And so that I just feel like that gives it sort of a nice look. All right, so let's move on. Let's go ahead and add a few text boxes. I know a lot of people were talking about the fact that they wanted a lot of color, they wanted to include different shapes and textures in their document. And so with that in mind, let's go ahead and start adding some shapes. So to do that, I'm going to grab my layers panel again. I've got my background color, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to insert a new layer, and this is perfect. It's going to appear right above my background layer, but behind my text and images. And I'm going to just call this my text color boxes. And before I add my text color boxes, it is really important that I double check that I am pretty happy with the type that I've chose, with the fonts I've chosen, and so on and so forth. And one thing that's still bothering me a little bit is the fact that I've got this value of A through G down here. I'd really like it to be up here. So that tells me that I need to maybe I could potentially move a couple of things around that are inconsequential to like my images. Or in this case, like maybe I would add like a little bit more text into the high school marathon section that I took away. And then that will move some things around. Again, it creates a situation where you really want to make sure that you have everything lined up before we start adding those colored text boxes. And if you make adjustments later on, you'll definitely understand why. So I'm just going to move this back down. And there we go. Okay. And I might even go ahead and transform this one more time. Just go 70. There we go. Perfect. Maybe I'll move it over here. Make sure you have those blue. There, I kind of like that. All right, so now we're ready to add these text color boxes. So let's do that. I'm gonna just go ahead, I'm gonna grab my rectangle tool. I'm gonna make sure that I'm selected on the correct layer. I'm gonna make sure there's no border color for this, but I am gonna select a color of my choice. I kind of went through and I chose some colors that I liked in advance. And so I can type those in. But for you, you can go ahead and like use your color picker, oops, and then and just choose like whichever colors you want. So again, I'm just gonna go ahead for the time being. I think that this will also save a little time as far as the tutorial is concerned. And I'm gonna hit OK, and it's gonna change to this sort of gold color. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create a text box, or sorry, yeah, a colored text box that's gonna go behind my text, behind my images, and it'll look kind of just like that. I might choose to like just move it over a slight bit that way so that it's balanced. And then I'm ready to add my next one. So again, you want to make sure that you deselect that, because if you went in and chose a different color, then that color that you just spent a significant amount of time choosing might disappear on you. So I'm going to grab my next text box, and actually let's go ahead and I'm going to change the color first. So again, you can use your color picker to choose like a color that you feel is complementary. Like I said, I kind of chose one already. So I'm just going to type in the values. I'm going to select OK. You can see it's sort of this rose color. And I'm going to leave just a little bit of space between the two. But I do want to make sure that this lines up nicely. On all sides. Okay, and if I want to just double check how it's looking, I can go over here and see it looks like it all lines up nicely. I've got my background color and so on and so forth. Let's go ahead and add another box. So for this one, the value of A through G, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to grab my selection tool, I'm going to deselect everything, I'm going to grab the rectangle tool, I'm going to go up and select the color that I want by double clicking here. You can use your color picker. Remember to use both tools to choose the color that you want. For me, I'm going to just input a couple of values and I'll get this sort of green color. And I don't want them to line up exactly. I just want there to be a little bit of separation between the two boxes. And then I guess actually this one's pretty small. So let's just do this. Notice I did make sure that it was lined up on the top. And then I tried to make it so that the margins on each side were symmetrical. And I'm looking at this and I actually don't feel like I went down far enough, so I'm just gonna create that box one more time. For me, that's just the easy. It's just a rectangle, so I just want to recreate that one more time, and I'm gonna have it come down like right about there, so it really comes down below my text. Okay, and if I was uncertain if that was the color I wanted, I can double check my values, and according to this, it was. Maybe it's just the background that I'm not liking the look of that. And I can always go back later. I use my selection tool. I can always go back to this rectangle later. And change the colors. Let me see something really quick. Okay, good. If you ever have trouble selecting something, you can always do that, and then you can go back and you can change it to like any color that you'd want. Okay, so let's continue. I'm going to grab my selection tool, make sure I'm not selected on anything. I'm going to grab my rectangle tool, and I'm going to go up here and I'm going to select a color that I'm going to be happy with. For this next one, I'm going to choose this purple color, and I'm going to start on this side this time. I'm going to leave a little bit of space, and then this is a little bit tougher because I can't quite see where that lines up right now, and so I'm going to just do my best. I'm going to guess like right about there. Okay, and I can always hide this, and I would think that that actually looks like it lines up perfectly, so that's really good. So you're getting a good idea of like some of the different tools that you can use right now in InDesign, how you can add some color, how we're adding shapes, how we're leaving some space. These are all great elements of art as well. And so it's kind of a fun, like, this is like a fun way to intertwine some of the like CTE skills you're learning with some of the like artistic skills that are also part of this class. Let's get another text box going. So I'm going to make sure I deselected everything. Notice that. Grab my rectangle tool. I'm going to go up and select a color. And this time, I'm going to change my values. You can choose any color you want. And there we go. And that leaves us just one last box to create. So again, selection tool, deselect everything, grab my text box, go up, select a color. Very exciting. We're getting really close to the end. Chose this light yellow. And there we go. So that's looking pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. I think one thing though that I'm not happy about is this green up here, and I'm just wondering if it might be the background color. So I'm gonna go to my background color actually. I might even just really make sure that I'm selected on this background color. And I'm gonna change the background color also. I'm just gonna go up to my color picker, and I'm gonna just throw in a couple of values. So it's like more of this like darker purple. Let's see how that looks. Yeah, that looks a lot better. So isn't that amazing also how just a minor change like the background color can make this color go from something that, I mean, at least in my personal opinion, looked hideous to something that I can actually deal with now. Let's do something fun at the top, just to like add a little bit of creativity and learn how to use one more new tool. I'm gonna grab my pen tool, and with my pen tool, I'm gonna draw a line. Before I do that, I'm gonna select a color that I want this to fill in with. Excuse me, and I might just again, I'm gonna just throw in a couple values. And okay, and you can see it's sort of this like magenta, bright, pinkish, almost red color. And what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna just, the pen tool is a little tricky, but I'm just gonna go ahead, I'm gonna click once here. I might click like once, let's just go down here. And without letting go, I'm not gonna let go. I'm gonna create like a pretty extreme curve. And you can see that it actually ends there. And remember, anything out here doesn't matter. It's not gonna show up on your document. So even though that looks a little weird right there, if I go to Shift W, now I've got a document that sort of has like a cool artistic look to it, right? And if I wanted to, I could even choose another vibrant color. Let's see if there's a good one here, or I can go to my color picker. I'm seeing something I'm in love with right now because I've already got my purple background. Let's see what would happen if I just did a dark blue. And I could just grab my pen tool again, do something like this. And again, I'm just having fun now. And I mean, just see, what does that look like? You know, so now you're kind of like adding some like cool effects in the background that, you know, maybe draw your audience's attention a little more. And so I encourage you, one of the most important aspects of this assignment, even though I really wanted to use the opportunity for you to investigate like how your progress in school and start thinking about like what is it that I want for after high school or even after college, and getting a realistic expectation of what the future holds, is I also want you to just play with the different elements of design in InDesign and realize what you're capable of creating. So here we are. That's this tutorial. You can also see there's a million other tools that you can play with, and we'll continue to investigate those. But have a little bit of fun today. Good luck with your project, and I'll look forward to seeing the final product. Thanks.